So I'm pretty sure most people by now has experienced that sometimes the entity takes up a huge chunk of your block web, and at first this might seem random, but in fact it's not. There's a very specific pattern behind it, and you can use this pattern to speed up the process of your block web. Okay, so to try and explain how this mechanic works, I'm going to divide a block web into 3 circles: an outer circle, a middle circle, and an inner circle. So to quickly clarify, because it's kind of important to understand this whole thing and how it works, if there are no perks taken by you, the entity will spawn after you've taken 4 cells and will start consuming cells on the 5th turn. So contrary to most belief, the entity will not actually prioritize expanding inwards. Instead, it will prioritize expanding outwards if that is possible, and most of the time. The reason why this is not very obvious is because it always spawns in the outer circle, and for that reason it can only expand inwards on the 1st turn. So I'm going to showcase a very simple example of this mechanic, where the entity travels from the outer circle to the middle circle and then back to the outer circle, and it's when it's expanding outwards again that it can consume multiple cells at once. Alright, so I'm trying to give you guys a practical example of how this works in an actual block web. So in this block web I am hunting for flashlights, and because there are no flashlights I am simply trying to get this block web over as soon as possible so I can move on to the next one. So these kind of patterns can be a little bit hard to spot at first, but the 2 easiest ones right now are the 2 triangles in this block web. So what is a little bit harder to notice here is that the triangle is connected to the inner circle, which isn't directly linked to the outer circle. So it means that once it reaches the inner circle, it will instantly consume everyone in the outer circle as well. So on the left side, we have a slightly similar scenario, but not quite. So as you can see here, it will reach the Cobble Farm offering, but it will not consume the other 2, simply because it cannot consume multiple cells if it goes from an outer circle to an inner circle. But once it reaches the green stamp, it will consume both cells. A very common mistake in this scenario would be to go for this pool of cells. It looks very appetizing, but it's a massive trap, simply because the pattern will not be what you expect. On top of that, this pool of cell is super cheap, which can help you kickstart the entity for like almost no blood points. So here's like my interpretation of how this could go and why you should not go for this. So first of all, it will go for the 2 burnt offerings. It will do that in 2 turns. After that, it will go for the spool wire. It will then move down to the clean rack, the burnt offering, and then after that it will go for the green altar haven offering, and it will also instantly consume the cracked pearl because it's going from inner to outer circle. So after all that theory, I'm now going to show the actual practical example of the block web being done. Okay, now that that is done, I'm going to try and put things into perspective a little bit. So in this block web, I spent about 46,000 block points. I took 13 cells, while the entity took 13 cells itself. And I spent about an average of 3,538 block points. So normally if you hadn't done this kind of technique, the entity would have taken 9 cells and you would have taken 17 cells, which means that your total cost of this block web would be up on 60,000. So by using this mechanic, you basically saved 14,000 blood points. There are instances where this mechanic doesn't work, but it's all explainable, and you need to be aware of these small traps so you can avoid them. As you can see here, the whiteboard did not get consumed, and in order to explain this, I'll bring up the 3 circles again. If a cell that is going to get consumed is connected via a node to another cell, like this whiteboard is connected to this yellow offering, it cannot be in the same circle, so the red circle, or it cannot be in a circle below it, so the yellow circle. Here is a different example that I want to showcase because it can be quite tricky, and I just want to make sure that it is explained properly so everyone understands it. So the reason why the entity did not consume the cell despite the entity actually being in the inner circle and going to the outer circle is because that cell is connected to another cell in the inner circle. Now on the second term, both of these were consumed, and that's because that cell was not connected to any other cell in the same circle or a circle below it. Well, that was all there was to that mechanic, at least as far as I know. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, and perhaps this will help you save some blood points in the future. Thanks for watching.